When do we start?
So we'll start right now, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
यकपाल जी जय हिंद सर।
जय हिंद जी।
अभी देखो सर कोरोना ने कितनी दूरियां बढ़ा दी हैं स्क्रीन पर ही एक दूसरे की शक्ल देखनी पड़ रही है।
Hello. Hello. Can we start the panel discussion, sir?
Yes, I think we can.
Dr. Saru?
Is Dr. Swarup there?
Yes, Prabir, begin
Sir,
immediately.
yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I basically first I introduce my panelist first today is Dr. P.R. Saru, is Director General CIDC, and he is today's moderator. I'd like to introduce Dr. Rajiv Kumar Garg, is Chief Scientist, Bridge Engineering and Structures Division, CSIR CRRI. Engineer Alok Bhomik, Managing Director, BNS Engineering Private Limited, and he is past president of IS Tracti. Dr. Sishir Bansal, Chief Engineer cum Executive Director, he is CPWD, Leh, JK and Srinagar. And Dr. VVL Kantarao, Senior Principal Scientist, Bridge Engineering and Structures Division, CSIR and CRRI. So I request Dr. Saru to please start this discussion with your opinions. Hello.
Thank you, Prabir,
Yeah,
and
please,
welcome to all. I think we have an excellent panel today. And of course, as a last minute change and a welcome change, I would also request Dr. Harsha Subbarao also to join the
and
panel.
yes, yeah.
He's very much here with us. I had a discussion with him this morning. Now, the issue that we are going to be deliberating now is something which is of very, very great concern to all of us. And it not only talks about the kind of flaws that we have in our system, but also it puts across such a bad name for the Indian engineering industry and especially the construction companies. Madam, can you mute yourself, please? Host, can you mute everybody else while a speaker is speaking? So I welcome you once again, and this topic that we are going to be deliberating today is a very, very serious topic, and it is basically arising out of the fact that in past there were many structures and especially the bridges that had been collapsing and falling down, and each collapse that it has, it basically shakes the foundation of the entire engineering fraternity that we have, the kind of execution prowesses that we have, and there are several other issues that we have. So we have a very eminent panel of experts here, and all of us know who they are. So I will not go into the details of introducing them. They are very well known to all of us. And I think this is the time that we should sit down, do some kind of a deliberation, some kind of brainstorming to really look into the kind of issues that are basically giving rise to the kind of unsavory situations that we are facing today. Why should the structures collapse? We seem to have some of the finest construction companies in the country. We seem to have some of the finest engineers with us. We seem to have everything which is treated as very fine, but still these kind of aberrations are taking place. And I'm really shocked to share this with you. And many of you are already aware that such occurrences have become almost like very frequent these days. So what are the causes and what are the issues? So I am basically putting up three questions to all concerned, and all of you are connected with this particular sector of construction. And I think this is for introspection and finding out a solution to the problems that we are facing. I'm just giving across 3 of the issues, and these 3 issues on which I will request the expert panel to comment on each one of them, and to the best possible wisdom and knowledge of their own, they must recommend how exactly do we go about. So the 3 issues here are, number 1, what are the flaws in the system that we are following? Obviously, the net outcome is that bridges are collapsing, the structures are failing, so there have to be flaws. We cannot anymore keep our eyes closed on that. That's number 1. The second question is, how should we remedy them? And I am very sure that this august audience who's sitting here today, they have plenty of solutions which they are willing to offer. They can always find out the flaws in the system. They can also offer the solutions. And the third one is the most important one. And that is, how do we implement the suggestions that are being given by this august gathering of very wise people? So these are the 3 issues that I would like to place before all of you, and let our expert panel comment on these 3 issues. When we talk of flaws, I think we all are aware that there are plenty of them, but just as a pointer, let me tell you that we have to start looking at, starting from that, what are the flaws in our procurement system? How do we procure the services? Number 1. And this is going to be very important, especially for the government departments, maybe the state PWDs, NHAI, or whoever, to look into the kind of procurement systems that they are following now. Are there any flaws? Number 2, the technical capability of the construction companies who are entrusted this work. And the alarm bells are now rising for a very simple reason, that some of the finest names are now being dragged into this kind of a situation. I do not wish to name them, but all of you are aware of it. The third thing, which is extremely important, is to really look very, very critically into the technical capability and competence of the advisors and the consultants that we have there. Let me go to the fourth one, which is equally important. That is, what are the capabilities of the engineers we have today? Are there any flaws in their training? Is there any flaw in some kind of understanding that they have? I was talking to Harsha Subbarao this morning, and I said that I really wish that Dr. Subbarao was still there. If a person like Dr. Subbarao is around, I would tell you that he would basically speak tooth and nail against it. And I think Harsha will be throwing some light on that. Let us go to the assessment of the capability of our workers and supervisors who are actually put at the sites. This is another area that we have to start looking at. Then we talk about the flaws in the diagnostic systems that we have. We also have to look at the maintenance and the health check systems that we have put in position. The kind of safety audits that we keep conducting. We have fantastic documentation that has been done, and almost all public works departments and any department will follow all those systems which appear to be very foolproof. Then where exactly is the problem? We come to the equipment and the efficacy of the equipment and the type of equipment that we put on the sites to execute the work. So these are the kind of things that we need to do. And somewhere in between, I will be intervening while the experts are speaking about it. But before that, let me give you a small story. And this story is a very, very eye-opening story. What happened was, when the Americas were not yet populated by the white people, it was basically the tribes who used to be living there. And here was a tribe who knew 3 things. They had a stream that used to flow nearby their settlement, and they knew how to catch the fishes with the kind of bare hands, and that used to give them the food. They used to have woolly horses which used to be roaming around, and they were the ones who basically were caught. The horses were used for transportation, the wool was used for making their garments. And then they had a tiger which used to come there and cause a lot of havoc. So they learned how to make the fire rings and protect themselves from the onslaught of the tiger. So the tribe was happy, comfortable, they were living together, and they knew the three things that gave them their food, that gave them their transportation, that gave them their protection and clothes. And they were okay. They were prospering. And then one fine morning, somebody came in and said that why would we not teach our youngsters all these techniques? So they said, okay, let us have a place called university. We can call the experts as professors. They will teach our young people. They will learn all these things. And just to give a grand name to this curricula, they called it Sawtooth Tiger Curricula, because the tiger was known as Sawtooth Tiger, who used to come and pester them. So they were being taught. The young kids became very smart. They started catching the fish with the bare hand. They started catching the woolly horses at the blink of the eye. And they were able to make the fire rings, so the things were very comfortable. But after a while, the good things don't last for very long. The fishes knew how to hide in the crevices. The woolly horses ran away, and in place of that, the mules came in. And then the sawtooth tiger realized that he can't get any food in this settlement, so he also went away. And instead, the bears came, who were not bothered about these fire rings. And then the tribe was in a problem. They said, what do we do now? But the university continued teaching the students. They were being taught about all kind of technologies which came out of the things. There were researches that were done and things like that. The tribe sat down again. They said, what do we do? We have three options. Don't do anything. We basically quit this place and go somewhere where you have the woolly horses and the fishes and the sawtooth tiger, because these are the only things that we know. Or alternatively, find out the alternatives. So they said, okay, let us find the alternatives. And they caught hold of some of the smart people and they said, you are the industry and you find out how exactly do we go about doing these things. The industry said, okay, we'll make some net out of the vines. So the fishes started coming. Out of the rope that they made out of those vines, they used lassos and they started catching hold of the mules. And instead of having the fire rings, they said that now we will have the pits and the stakes and the bears will be there so that we can get the skin and they can get the meat. So the problem was solved. And then, of course, these people went and they said, why would we not train our youngsters in what we are going to do now?
You are on mute, Dr. Swaroop. Kindly unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself, Swaroop sir.
Okay. So they said that this whole thing has to be reformed again and the new curricula has to be brought in so that we have the new experts coming in. And then nobody agreed. So they continued doing the things that the way they were doing it, and the industry continued doing the things that they were doing it, but there was hardly any consonance. Now, if this carries a message for all of us, let us understand that these are the issues. There is another issue that we have, and that is on account of this COVID, there are a number of disputes that are taking place. And these disputes also need to be resolved in case we want to smoothen and streamline the things. But first, let us start looking at these particular issues. So I am giving it to my esteemed panel. And now I will be requesting all of them to focus their responses on the three issues I said. Number one, what are the flaws in their opinion? I gave a hint of number of things that have to be examined before we identify the flaws. The second is how should we remedy them? And the third is how do we implement the kind of suggestions that are there? All of us are free to kind of put up their own views and opinions, but let us try to focus on something where the implementation takes the precedence, unlike implementation of sawtooth curricula story that I gave you there. So the first panelist on my panel here is Dr. Rajiv Kumar Garg, Chief Scientist, Bridge Engineering and Structures Division of CSIR, CRRI. Sir, we would like to hear from you, your views on the three issues that I have raised, and of course, the connected sub-issues that we have. So I give you Dr. Rajiv Kumar Garg. Dr. Rajiv Kumar Garg, please. And my request to everyone is to kind of keep your things muted so that the speaker can talk about it.
Thank you, Dr. Saru.
Sure.
I am overwhelmed. My voice is clear.
Your voice is very clear. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So I would like to share the screen so that it is audio visual. So I think I cannot share the screen, but I can say that if we look at our failure of bridges, say every year bridges fail, and if somebody keeps data, then I can say that there are roughly 2,000 bridges have failed in last 40 years in India. And the average age of these bridges, is roughly 128, failure rate is roughly 128 per year. And if we look at American bridge failure in last decade, it is roughly 129. So we are very close to a data. We say that roughly 128 bridges per year in last decade have collapsed or failure. I want to say that failure is defined different from collapse. Collapse says that at least one aspect of a structure has fallen down. However, failure means solutions were not available, whether it is one of the component of bridge failed or due to some other reason, or say a component are so weak that a major repair for several months was involved. So that way we have to define that collapse alone is not sufficient, but failure to give a service, and that one look at that system was not working as per expectation. So bridges fail, there is no problem. So however, we have to look at some data. If we look at overall bridges in service as well as our other bridges, so what we noticed is roughly 80% of failure of bridges in India was attributed to natural disasters, which include flood, primarily flood, earthquake, landslide, etc. Deterioration of material due to various reasons, say aging is one of another reason, which is roughly 14%. And overloading is quite high in India, and that's what somewhere 4.5%. So this type of analysis gives us that where we stand. As pointed out during construction stage, that data is also available with us. Nearly 123 bridges failed during 1977 to 2017. And the maximum failure of roughly 34% attributed to formwork. Formwork failure has caused a lot of damages to bridges during construction, and that's a total 42 bridges out of 143. So scaffolding and all those things needs immediate attention, which I don't think a designer is directly responsible. In fact, responsibility is for the full chain. All the links need to be fully in command under the engineering charge, so that the designer assess the situation at the site, including the design of a scaffold. We have a proper modal provisions, but how much of us follow that question? So that is one of the reasons that scaffolding can be avoided. Another important reason of failure of the bridges in construction is construction technique. Construction techniques at the site are proper, improper, or not utilized properly. That's the point. So pre-stressing needs proper attention, and that is one of the high-tech field. And many of us, in fact, at the field I have seen that some of the girders were not absolutely in line or axis. Their axis was slightly bent in, say, about vertical Z axis. so that if you look at the from top view, it was a curved surface and not a straight line. And this was only one thing which I noticed, and we checked the girder, and ultimately we have to accept because eccentricity was not serious enough. Eccentricity is permitted, but how much is permitted? That is very small. So all these checks are needed, as you have rightly pointed out, that at the site, proper supervision, proper record, proper equipments are needed. As far as concerned, another aspect is human related. Human error related includes design fault, mechanical failure, say some crane could not be handled properly, or human error, some other errors. That account to be roughly 22% failure in this period. Experts say that this type of human failure, whatever effort you do, will be slightly minimized. Risk, whenever we carry out something new, there is risk. So we have to look at what are the risks available at site, or what are the possibility of risk, and minimize them. Therefore, I suggest it's a holistic view that at the site, proper supervision and area needed. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir, and excellent. And I think for rest of the speakers also, for rest of the panelists, may I suggest that they should basically limit their address to about 15 minutes, and then we'll have to leave this particular platform open for many questions and answers that might be coming. And secondly, try to kind of focus around the three questions that I have tried to put it to you. Dr. Garg especially spoke about some of the problems that you have there, but I think the generic solutions like supervision has to be strengthened, possibly may not do. So let us try to be more specific than that. I would expect that that should come out from the experts. So can we have Dr. Shishir Bansal now, who is the Chief Engineer cum Executive Director of Central Public Works Department of Leh, and I think we might have met as a member of the planning board of Union Territory of Leh and Ladakh. I had been there, we had been talking about it, and I think Dr. Bansal possibly was part of the group who had come and discussed with me. So we will do that, and there is a positive CPWD has done, and that is to ensure that in all their contract documents, they have made a provision that at least 40% of the workers are skill trained, certified, and that is a very welcome step which all of us need to follow, even in the state PWDs as well. So I give it this to Dr. Shishir Bansal. Dr. Bansal, please take it over. And for rest of them, once again, my request, kindly keep yourself muted. 15 minutes is the time. Dr. Bansal, you have there, kindly express yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Swaroop. And thanks to Prabir for giving me this opportunity for being a panelist. I will start my comments with the problems I have been facing in bridge constructions, leading to failures during the construction stage and post-construction also. See, I was the chief project manager for the Signature Bridge and many more flyovers in Delhi. So I'll start the problems which I face. Dr. Swaroop has given the first thing is flaws in the system. What we as a field engineer face is that the government or the owner of the bridge, funding agency, they initially take such a long time that once the project is sanctioned, the expectation from the field team is to deliver it as early as possible, as quick as possible, compromising on all the timelines. And we have got some magic stick with us. We just go to site and finish the construction in minimum time. The first flaw lies here only. The construction team, the execution team should be given the sufficient time required for successful execution of the project. We are talking of failure. What is failure? Is just a falling of a span out of 100 span is a failure? Or falling of an activity which is not noticed by anybody else? Many times what happens, a span falls and come to notice of the entire public news media, and the news there is a failure in the bridge. And many times there are small activities, small failures. I'll share one such small failures when I was making Signature Bridge or welding field. Nobody knows it, but yes, it was failure of one of the activity. Why even that activity failed? We have to take care of it. Then failure during the maintenance periods. Rajaram Kolibar flyover, one expansion joint failed. Then we have to see why it failed within 2 years. That is again a failure of the bridge. Some casualty happens at site. I'll say even it is failure. Though nobody knows it who has gone and where the casualties happened. But casualties happening at site, accidents happening at site, they're failures. Even the failure in protection environment is a kind of failure. Now coming to site specific conditions. Once the work is awarded, if you see the team, there are basically two distinct components. One, which is directly involved in the field, executive engineer and below level, and other who are above them as a manager level, like project manager or chief project manager. And they are on the face of it, indulging with the government, interface with the government and the contractor and the consultant and our executive team. The government is putting all kind of pressure. Bureaucrats, politicians, they are putting all kind of pressure, maybe because of their election promises or any reasons. My first thing is that such a pressure should not be passed to the executive team that executive engineer is doing at the site, executive engineer, or assistant engineer, junior engineers. They should be totally immune. We are in our tender documents, as Dr. Swarup said, is a perfect, fantastic document. We have laid down all type of systems, all type of methodologies, quality assurance, extra high Q4, extra high quality system. But how much being followed at site? Are our engineers trained to understand this extra high quality assurance? I'll share one small example in Barapula phase 2 when I was doing that project. One of the shuttering failed during filling of a pillar, a 6-meter height pillar, and the bottom plate that got opened. My engineer at site, he was not trained enough, he didn't know what to do. It was 2 a.m. at the site. And I told him, please call me whenever anything happens. Instead of calling me, what he did, Sabne Milkar, they just tied up the nut and bolt and found me in the morning as if they were successful. Sir, it was opened and we have tied up. I fired them badly, but tomorrow you will not be at site. You know, once the shuttering plates are opened, where is the consolidation? We have to remove the pillar and we have to remove that, redo that, break all the concrete. So our engineers who are working at site have to be very well trained. What is bridge engineering? What is quality assurance? What is extra high quality assurance? As per quality document, if you see, we have got all kind of methodologies, all kind of checklists for the execution of activity, checklists for the testing of materials. But are these religiously followed? Whenever a failure occurs, and if you examine it, if you audit it, ultimately it come out for the few reasons that checklist was not followed or the materials were not qualifying. It means again, testing of material, there was something wrong. If we ensure it religiously that all the methodologies, all the checklists are followed at site, I can tell you 90% of the failures will be avoided at site. This as a field engineer I have observed. So all these remedial measures, why this happens, why they do not follow checklist? Because many times they are under the pressure or they do not know how to do and they avoid all these things and such flaws happens and leading to some failures. So all these flaws of the system, the site staff should be immune from all these pressures and they should be made to follow checklists. Again, I'll share one of the examples. It was a Motia flyover. In one of the checklists, in one of the methodologies, the contractor has written that after fixing my crane, I'll move it clockwise in direction and do some activity. But when we did the site, he started moving instead anti-clockwise. I just told him, Mr. Nothing doing, I not allow this. Then he told me, sir, how does it happen? Is clockwise or anti-clockwise? No, methodology is written clockwise. You change the methodology, you redo it, then only I will allow. The idea is not that I do not understand. I also understand clockwise, anti-clockwise is not better. But thing is that he was to be sensitized about this system of methodology and checklist. So my submission is that to avoid such failures, the best remedial measure is follow religiously all checklists or methodologies so that such failures does not occur at site. Then another big thing which I observed is third-party quality assurance. Normally we appoint third-party quality assurance and I feel that he is not a part of our team. But once we are the paymaster to him, he automatically becomes part of our team. The third-party quality assurance should actually be independent. And that is possible only if the paymaster and the appointing authority is different from the site executing authority. This is my submission. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think you have started moving towards where I was trying to lead everybody, and you have identified some of the kind of weaknesses, but we need to have some definite solutions. And what you said was absolutely correct and in position. So we have to find out how exactly can we counter these things. I am of the firm opinion that the brightest and the most intelligent people and professionals are engineers. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that we cannot come out with some kind of fantastic solutions. So this is just the beginning of the deliberation. We'll go deeper into that, but we will also have to start looking at the kind of agencies who are executing the work. As a matter of fact, recent happenings have been where some of the largest names in the construction industry have also been suffering this kind of a malady. So where exactly the things are going wrong with such kind of good names, that is another thing that we have to think about. With that, I will invite Engineer Alok Bhaumik, and of course, Alok is known to all of you very well, so I won't introduce him. And Alok, please take it over and let us focus on the three issues that I gave to you. There is a small story I will narrate somewhere in between about the three questions that I have put in for everyone to ponder about. So Alok, please take it over.
Thank you, Dr. Swarup. I think in your opening remarks, you practically flagged all the issues, that is attributed to so many large number of failures that we have been witnessing. Before I start, I must take this opportunity to thank CIDC and CE&CR who thought it fit to have a panel discussion on such an important topic as bridge failures in construction. Now, coming to these three pointed questions that Dr. Swarup posed to the panelists. First, why the failure occurs? Second, what is the remedy? How to remedy these failures? And third is how to implement those solutions. Let me go to the first question, that is why failure occurs. Let me begin by saying that bridge failure is not something which is only India-centric. Bridge failures occurs all over the world. In 2018, we have seen or we have heard about major failure of this Morandi Bridge, Genoa, in Genoa, Italy, which is a cable stayed bridge, which failed after about 50 years. We have also heard about this I-35W bridge in Minneapolis in USA out in 2007, and all these bridges have failed after service, and there are innumerable number of bridges which failed during construction. So why we are discussing this issue today is because of the fact that in India, the failures are taking place a bit too frequently, and that is what is genuinely a matter of concern. We are today living in a planet where we have very limited resources. Our resources are as it is falling short. We need 3 planets for the kind of demand that we have. We can't afford to build unsafe and non-sustainable structures. This will put a lot of burden to our future generation, and therefore we must stop this kind of failures. Reasons: number one, we have more failures and frequent failures because we do not have the intent to learn from our failures. In fact, if you see all these earlier bridge failures that I talked about, Genoa Bridge, Italy, or I-35W, you will see volumes and volumes of investigation reports in public domain, which gives you, a lot of material from which the whole world is learning. Here is the case: every failure after failure occurs in our country. We do not investigate the failures properly. Even if we investigate, we do not make the investigation report public, and therefore we stop our engineering fraternity to learn from the bridge failures that is occurring. That is, I would call that as the primary reason why we are unable to curb this failure. Coming to the other causes, let me go now more specific. You see, bridges fail due to, I mean, if we start from the initial planning to the failure, firstly, we have very poor planning, very poor detailed project report, and that stems out of the fact that we have a very unrealistic time allocation for the detailed project report, resulting in very poor conceptualization of the project itself. We have seen this in number of projects. Secondly, the construction sector, I think Dr. Swaroop flagged this issue in his opening remarks. Our construction sector is highly unorganized and fragmented. You will be surprised to know that only about 0.4% of 2.5 lakh contractors that we have in India can be considered as medium and large contractors. Only 0.4%. It's a minuscule figure. And if we count the number of large contractors who are capable of doing, these kind of long span bridges, they can be counted in fingers. What is surprising is, despite these minuscule numbers, when it comes to a bidding, they cut each other and they come out with a bid where the percentage, there is no profit, everybody is on loss. I mean, I say seriously, I do not understand why this, but then the fact is that the percentage profit at which these contractors are working is absolutely unworkable, considering the fact that the contract is completely one-sided, where all the risks are to be taken by the contractors. This is a serious flaw. This needs to be addressed. Secondly, thirdly, majority of these contracts are presently in EPC mode or HAM mode in infrastructure, which is, turnkey. So the contractor appoints the design consultant, detailed design consultant, and the proof consultant when he is awarded the job. And he is supposed to deliver construction. His construction is supposed to start from the day the work is awarded to him. There is no time left for the detailed engineering. I mean, this is a flawed kind of a system in which there is every likelihood of the design to have a lot of faults. I think this needs to be looked into. Another important aspect is that we do not have any regulatory mechanism for licensing of engineers. Most of the engineers who are actually working, whether they are working in the site or in the design office, they may not be really qualified and eligible for the job which they are doing, and there is no way, there is no system by which we are able to prevent that, and this is a very, very serious problem. We all know that we are generating or producing some 15 lakh engineers per year, and only about 10 to 15% of them are employable. So all these so-called unemployable engineers are getting into the system, and there is no way by which we can regulate or we can sort of control. There is no concept of continuous professional development as a mandatory system in our curriculum. And on top of that, in the society as a whole, there is a very large deteriorating moral and ethical values in the society. So these are, to answer the first question of Dr. Swaroop, which is why failure occurs. These are the reasons why failure occurs. What is the remedy? Uh, Actually, there are many, issues on which we have to address, which I mentioned. The first and foremost, I think we have to improve our codes and standards and specifications to sort of, because the fact is that the quality and level of workmanship that we have at site is far too, demanding than what we assume in our codes and standards. We need to revisit our codes and standards and upgrade it so that it is tuned to the actual level of workmanship at site. It is another matter that we have to improve the workmanship at site, but as and when we improve, we can always come back and modify our codes and standards. Secondly, I think Dr. Rajiv Garg flagged in his presentation that we need to collect the statistical data of failures. Whatever data we have, Dr. Rajiv Garg has done an excellent job in collecting all the data in statistics. But I can tell you, if one collapse, under construction bridge collapse is reported, there are 10 which are not reported and you do not know of it. Only those construction failures which come to limelight, which are in the media glare, are reported, and that is what comes in the statistics. We need to be honest as a fraternity, and we need to collect and have the statistics. Only then we will know which are the area where we need to focus for remedy. I think there is a lot which the professional associations like CIDC or ECI or CEAI or IAS Structi can do. We must come forward and help the government to identify the issues of concern and remedy. Senior professionals like me, those who are having the passion in this profession, and now probably many of them of my batchmates are retired now. Probably they have little more time to devote for the profession, and I would appeal through this panel that they should come forward, dedicate themselves for the cause of the fraternity, and sort of share their experience, and sort of maybe be a part of any of these professional associations to improve the situation. Failure investigations should not be done with the intent of only finding the guilty. That is what I find. We only try to find the scapegoat. That should not be the intent of any failure investigation. Investigation should be done to find out the real cause of the problem, long-term solution, short-term solution. You also need to fix the responsibility. No denying from the fact. But if the investigation is done only to find the guilty, then you will surely find a wrong person as scapegoat only. It is extremely important that in future, the failure investigation reports are made public. They should be in the public domain because that will give some transparency to the whole issue. And most importantly, my last point on this is the institutional reforms that is necessary. There is a dire need to organize some capacity building programs. And I think, yes, as I said, professional associations like CIDC, like CEAI, or like Indian Association of Structural Engineers can join hands, come forward, and come out with programs, specific programs for training. There is a dire need to train the people who are at site, whether it is foremen or even engineers. There is a need even for the senior professionals of NHAI and Ministry of Transport and the contractor to get trained on the contract management. I find that the contract management personnels, there is a complete lack of understanding of the contract who are there at the site, and this leads to a lot of time overrun, cost overrun, and delay. So I think with this I will stop, and I would like to take questions later, but at this stage I would like to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Alok. It was wonderful as ever, and you have articulated many of the things. I promise that I'll tell you the story about the 3 questions which I keep asking. And this was somewhere in 1996. I had just joined CIDC as the director. I was the first and founding director, and I was given an office and a staff of 2 persons. And I was told to run the office. And when I entered this office of mine in Nehru Place, which I still occupy, I found that there are dead crows and there are dead pigeons which are lying there, and it was all dirty. And by evening, I had a knock on the main door, and I found that here is a gentleman fully attired in suits and everything, and I was dirty and shabby, getting my office cleaned. And he turned out to be the counselor commercial of Japanese embassy. So I invited him in. We sat down together in whatever little space that I had at that point in time, which was tidy. And then he asked me this question. He said, well, I had been looking for you. I knew about formation of CIDC, and we are interested in construction industry in India. And I have some 3 questions for you. I was trying to go through Planning Commission library and many reports, and I have not been able to get the answers. I said, please come out. But you can see my condition. I'm cleaning my office, so it might take a week or so, and I'll be able to answer that. So he raised the first question, and as you know, the Japanese don't speak too much. They are not as verbose as we are. So he said the first one, and he said that, what is the size of construction industry? It was a very loaded question. The second question he asked that what are the problems of construction industry? And the third question was that as CIDC, how are you going to be sorting them out? Now, I only had the answer for the second question. Frankly speaking, even I did not have at that point in time any idea as to how big the construction industry was. So I came back home. I had promised that after a week, I'll give him an answer. And I sat down and I put on my thinking cap. And then I realized that the only item which can give me the exact extent of construction that is being done is the quantum of cement that is manufactured in the country. And that is something which was very well recorded in the government record. So I took that out, backworked it, made certain approximations, and first time came to the size of construction industry, and rest of the things were very easy because thereafter I worked out how many workers are working for construction industry, how many engineers are there, what kind of equipment are we using, and many other things. That was the beginning of the research. Now, I was a very, I would say, relatively a young person, and we had our first national conference, and one of the speakers was Dr. T.N. Subbarao, the late father, respected Dr. T.N. Subbarao. And he was there, and I always had a great regard for him. So I told him, I said, sir, I have made some calculations, and I have always revered you and respected you. Can you endorse these figures? When I showed it to them, then he started laughing and he showed me his own notes. He said, this is precisely in about 15 minutes I'll be talking about. But how the hell did you get this number? Because I have not shared this with anyone. So then I told him my method of doing it. And that was the first time that Dr. Subbarao took me on as a kind of, you can say, he started mentoring me. And he was always a kind of a guide, philosopher, and a great teacher. And I wish a person like him is here. So Harsha, he was the one who had taught me, and that is how the things came out. And this is the story of the three questions that I am asking. These are the very pointed questions. If we have answer for them, I have yet to get the answer for the third question, which even Alok hasn't responded. We'll work out together. Not that all the answers you can get in one single day's meeting, but then we are sure that we'll be able to work out. All right, so I go to the next expert panelist, and Dr. VVL Kantarao. He is the senior principal scientist of CSIR, CRRI once again, and a colleague of Dr. Rajiv Kumar Garg. So, Dr. Kantarao, please.
Sir, good afternoon, everybody, sir. Thank you, Dr. Swarup, sir, for giving me time. Dr. Pradeep also. So, sir, I will like to address some of the issues raised by you, sir, in the class, sir, by giving one example without taking any names and organizations. We in CRRI some few years back, we inspected a bridge on a call from the clients to see a hole formed on a span of one of the box culvert bridges on NH or one of the national highways. We went there, we inspected that, and before that, one famous some professors from IIT, nearby IIT were called, and they took simply the cover concrete course, a small course they have taken, they have tested it, they found it bad, so they recommended for demonstration of the entire span. Then they called one more university faculty. They took a long course and they went back. Then we went there. We found that in that holes left out by the big course, we found some different layers, actually, layer formation in that construction. Then after digging out, we found that the span was constructed during some hot summer time, somewhere in the June or so. And they started somewhere concreting around 2 o'clock or so in the afternoon. And later we found that it was basically a cold joint. And then we found that a part of that span was a small part of that was cut out, and we gave some repair methodology. This only, sir, highlights the technical capabilities of advisors and consultants. This addresses, I think, that issue. Because of lack of exposure of many of the faculty in many of the universities this kind of means wrong interpretation is going on, and that's creating some lot of problem actually. And simply in a nutshell, I can say that practical experience is more needed for all people, including engineers and faculty of universities and IITs. More practical knowledge and field exposure. Then only some of these things can be avoided, in my opinion. And also, you should ask for a remedy on the system. I think more of practical exposure to students also is needed actually. They need to be taken to the field very often, and make them to expose to the conditions there and how the system works and all, how the concreting is done and all, everything. And I think the curriculum also to be modified, in my opinion, to implement the suggestions, and also, if possible, bridge engineering academic course should be there exclusively. Apart from the structural engineering, of course, people is there, but bridge engineering should be there to make them more aware about the problems in the bridge construction, the design, and construction, and other aspects actually. This is what, in my opinion, sir. It's a small brief talk only, but it addresses, I think, some of the issues there. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. Nice to listen to you. I think we'll be picking more brains of you in the times to come and take your advice and go ahead with our task of basically freezing it. What we have decided that we are going to be finding out some kind of tangible solutions and make sure that they are implemented, and that is what CIDC always has been doing. So we are committed to it, and we will make sure that it is done. It can only be done with the kind of wise counsel of all people like you. So thank you so much. Now I have Colonel Manish Kapil, and he is from Border Road Organization, another very important organization of ours. And can we have Colonel Saab coming in and giving his expressions? Colonel Saab, please.
Sir, unfortunately, he is not attending this thing. Today's panel content.
All right. Then I go back to Dr. Harsha Subbarao. Can Dr. Harsha Subbarao be here?
Yes,
Doctor,
sir.
I want you to basically explain how exactly your father would have handled this particular situation.
Oh, that's
what I would like to listen from you. I know exactly what he would have done. He taught me many things. I had the good fortune of having spent a lot of time with him, and you have to explain to everyone. So I'm giving this to you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind words you said about my late father, T.N. Subbarao. Yes, I admired him just as you did, and I learned a lot from him growing up through my career. Right from schooling, I used to go with him to sites, and every site there was something to learn, something to see, and something to quietly file away. Even as a school-going child, it was always something, his way he carried himself, the way he looked at things, his eye for detail at site, what used to call housekeeping at site, you know, why things are lying around here or there and why they aren't properly stacked and accessible when you need them. So many issues he would pick up about issues of health of his staff, whether people were not performing because of their health. He had an eye for every detail apart from the engineering. I remember this one time at Full Doda, which is, close to in Jammu, near Doda town, the Full Doda, the bridge. We had a situation where I must have been about 16. I didn't know much about pre-stressing and so on, but the two cantilevers from the side had drooped down in the center, cantilevered from the sides, and that was because there was insufficient support from the abutment. So he very quickly, sitting there at site, worked with his engineer, Mr. Pachkuti, who was a construction man, and TNS was a design man and construction man. And they worked out a solution to vertically pre-stress it and add some sort of counterweight system. I still remember that. And those sketches were given. And even before the drawings were sent from the head office, by the time he went back, Pachkuti had already started, as it were, on the implementation of those solutions, just on the guidance of TNS. That's the kind of leadership, I think, that is lacking today, and the kind of confidence that is lacking, right from management down to engineering, implementation, people in implementation. The whole team needs to be looked at as such in the project implementation design phase. In fact, through the whole life cycle of the project, all the stakeholders involved, they have to look critically at themselves today in the light of these collapses. Now, coming back to the topic which we were on, apart from that small anecdote, the reasons for failures, mostly we are now affected. It has come into the light because the press and the TV have, put so much pressure on us engineers that we feel we have to respond. We have to do something. And in this sense, we have now quickly developed a guideline through some emergency sessions in which some of the best engineers, bridge engineers, have been involved. And we have put to the ministry some critical guidelines for the kind of collapses that we've seen on Sona and the Dwarka Expressway and other similar type structures in pre-stressed concrete. But that's not enough. I mean, we have collapses of all types. Many go unreported. They could be due to hydraulic reasons, due to floods, so on, scouring. They could be due to collision of a truck or a bus. They could be due to overloading of trucks onto a bridge. They could be mechanical deterioration, fire on the bridge, construction issues during construction, staging failures and things. It could be due to ice, earthquake, and liquefaction could be a very serious issue, as it happened at Bhuj earthquake. It could be fatigue of steel structures, very little understood in the codes today. Very, very poorly documented. The issue of fatigue is sort of like a non-catch-on matter in even our IRC codes. They're just now being dealt with, just in this last year, and still under development. Fatigue, which is an important reason for collapse. Then there could be design issues, there could be human error issues, there could be soil misunderstanding, poor geotechnical reporting, soil structure interactions which have not been accepted or are done in the design, storm, hurricane, tsunamis, and there could be so many other hazards which manifest themselves to give a distress to the bridge, maybe a partial collapse, maybe a full collapse, maybe a complete failure of the link with socio-economic implications, of course. So what are some of the flaws? I think the whole system is the responsibility matrix. Amongst the stakeholders, the distribution of responsibilities is not clearly delineated, and there's always a manner in which one can escape out of upholding one's own responsibility. This flaw has to be plugged. Now, coming to things like these issues at site where there are deviations at site. Say, for example, you have a casting yard where we do a lot of precasting, and the casting yard, because in the web of the box girder, which are precasting in the casting yard, you have a lot of congestion of reinforcement in the web, and you have also these cables going in the web, which are quite thick and they occupy space. Consequently, the concrete cannot go to the soffit. Past all this cannot consolidate well at the soffit, and it leads to honeycombs at the soffit base. That is a zone of high weakness, and it does crush and it does fail, and these kind of failures are happening, and we need to be alert about this. What actually happens? It doesn't happen after the first span, second span. It happens after 50 spans have been successfully launched, and then we have failure. Why? Because this is what we call the normalization of deviance. In the casting yard, the error had been noticed. Nothing happened. We erected. There is no problem. Everything went well. We patched it up and jugaad kar diya, and chalta hai yaar, chalega type of attitude. And over time, this acceptance, what we would have flagged as a failure or a small mini failure event or something to be dealt with, became normalized in its deviance and became accepted, and it gets passed every time thereafter. It gets passed and accepted and gone to site thereafter. Till one fine day that you have gone too far and the element or that point fails, and you have collapses like we have been seeing today. We also need to understand that the kind of construction equipment that is being used for construction, the rigor which is required to inspect, and a regulatory body, like we have lift inspectors, for example, we need regulatory bodies for these bridge erection equipment. We need them to be thoroughly checked, not just superficially checked or not just superficially accepted. And failure of bridge gantries have been very manifest over many years, and these are still lessons to be learned, which we don't learn from our forensic investigation of these events. Gives us no lessons learned. We don't file away anything. And the point is, as Alok said, when there is a failure, all we're interested is to find a scapegoat and fix blame. That should not be the approach. We should have a system like the UK or the world has, called confidential reporting, S-Cross. I'm a member of the IABSC group, which I interface with them. And anybody in public can raise a small confidential report on the issue and put it anonymously to SCROS's website. And SCROS picks it up, looks at it, and these kind of lessons learned then become into policy issues, and maybe acts of parliament or maybe changes in the guidance documents then happen. The whole issue is we don't have a confidential form of reporting of distresses or failures. And we don't have a system of independence in investigation. The forensic engineers are not trained in India. The idea of forensic engineering as a subject is simply not taught except at few places, that too cursorily. We need to qualify forensic bridge engineers. I would say even bridge engineers. So we need to train and develop forensic bridge engineers. A course for this, for capacity building in this, is very important. And this is lacking and doesn't exist in India at the current time. The capacity building of institutions, which again Alok spoke about, is so critical. The training that is required, the training at every level, whether it is at workman level, whether it's the truck guy, whether it's the crane guy, whether it's the team that moves something from site or lifts, or someone who fabricates equipment, the entire team involved in a project, they all require institutional training. They require, some institutions have to come up which will look at specifically training at all sectors involved in the construction industry. A point Alok again raised was about contract management, and I wouldn't say gung-ho attitude, but I would definitely say we could do very much better. The contracts are well written, they could be managed much better. The problem there is that the persons who need to manage those contracts aren't aware, aren't up to the mark, trained, etc. And contract management falls astray a bit on projects. Publishing these reports, like they do the SCROS report, anybody can go to the website of SCROS, SCROSS, type it in, and you will find number of bridge failure reports, all types of failures, but bridge failures many. And you can learn from them and you can take lessons from them. And we can therefore avoid them happening again. We don't learn our lessons, do we? I mean, Sona collapsed, this one collapsed, that one collapsed in these last 3 months. I mean, we've had expressway level collapses. These are expressway projects, very critical projects, which should be almost like fail safe, if you like. They should not be allowed to fail, especially during construction, not even during service life. Now, the point about investigation, sir, what is now required, of course, is we don't have something which I call a birth certificate. At the time zero, when the structure is commissioned, there should be a birth certificate document. And this has to be enshrined in our IRC and in our codes. It doesn't exist. A document like this is produced by the FIB, the Federation International for Beton, that's for concrete, the International Federation for Concrete. A bulletin is available. We can take clue from that, and we must insist in the tender document itself to create the birth certificate document at handover. What does it contain? It contains full traceability. It contains every traceability of the cement, the steel, all material side. It contains all the issues that were considered for the design criteria. It contains the whole set of drawing volumes, which are finally approved and as-built. It contains all the construction records so we need to create a birth certificate document, including all the NDTs that are conducted at time zero at commissioning, so that we create a baseline data to judge the future deterioration, for example, which may lead to an eventual collapse if unchecked or unmonitored. Here, the role of structural health monitoring for long elevated flyovers, like the ones we're building, have to be done. We don't have any structural health monitoring in long elevated flyovers that I know of. It would be important at least to monitor some of them. These collapses might have happened during construction, but there are many that happen in use. And those also we have to avoid. Let's not only limit ourselves to the during construction failures. The build structure failures are also important. And for that, structural health monitoring systems must form a place in the tender document and not be an afterthought or not be something that you come to later. Mr. Bansal spoke about some very important issues. The immense pressure that is put on people to perform in the site staff, and how we need to zealously guard the site staff from being put under undue time pressures and performance pressures. That's where corners get cut. When time pressures happen, the normalization of deviance automatically sets in. It becomes the raison d'etre for taking shortcuts, and this is what happens. Now, the railways, for example, The railways have a very good system of inspection and monitoring. Railways may have a few failures of bridges that are there, but their system of inspection, their system of recording detail, the availability of all the records always, this is the hallmark which the road bridges simply do not have. They don't have that kind of a management system of bridge assessment, monitoring on a yearly, biannually basis, and keeping those records available in public domain. Today, if you go to repair a bridge as a consultant, it has been repaired 10 years before, but are those records available? The rebirth certificate wasn't maintained when an intervention was done. So you don't exactly know what level of external priestess has been put in there. You don't exactly know, the strength of the kind of materials that were used, whether M50 was used or epoxy was used, or what was the documentation, the quality control of that. Then again, coming to the need for developing workmanship guidance documents. The Eurocode 1504 code, for example, just quoting one code, the Eurocode 1504 code, which is for repair, rehabilitation, and strengthening and assessment of structures. It ties all the stakeholders together. It's an amazing document. But the key point there is, it is pointing to a system. It is pointing to a system which we don't have yet. We do not tie the requirements of the materials, the workmanship rules into guidance documents. In fact, we have codes, but we don't have workmanship rules, the 5-digit, 6-digit type codes or guidance documents which follow the Eurocode. For example, some particular method of intervention or strengthening, it will have guidance documents on the workmanship. Similarly, even for new construction, there are guidance documents in the Eurocode suite of codes for all types of construction activity and intervention activity, which we don't have. This is some place we need to go and do something. The other issue is, of course, we don't look at management of our asset. I mean, bridges are an asset to the nation. The idea of looking at them in terms of an asset management format is very, very, it is the bridge management system that we have in India is woefully inadequate. And it should have served to alert deteriorations that are happening. It should have served to alert structures and prioritize structures for which intervention should happen. But our bridge management system in India doesn't have a decision-making matrix. It doesn't have a multi-criteria decision-making module. The prioritization that you do is simply based on inventory. And without any deterioration models being built in, there are no deterioration models in our bridge inventory and management system. It is only an inventory system as such. So this needs work. This needs important work if we want to maintain these assets, preserve them, and ensure they serve their full service life without failing. Coming to other issues, the suggestions to implement, suggestions to change, the issue about disputes and dispute resolutions. All too often, you find construction projects going into disputes and the need to have arbitration, dispute resolution, and so on. Whereas some gains have been made in this area of arbitration in the last few years, but still you find a number of court matters dragging on for year after year, and the contractor feels aggrieved. He feels he has not been compensated. Consultants sometimes feel they didn't get their due share because revised drawings, designs, time after time, involving the effort of the consultant, simply are not paid to them. Things like that leading to disputes, which we need to find a framework within the tender system that allows for these variations to work and how to resolve them, rather than having to go to arbitration and then going to dispute. So dispute and resolutions is very important. Now, coming to issues like safety audit. Safety audits, how are investigations done in India? Say, for example, a bridge has collapsed or a part of a bridge has collapsed. An expert committee is investigated. Some undue pressures are put on them to produce a preliminary report within 6 or 7 days, which is fundamentally impossible. Then within 3 months or something like that, a timeline, very tight line, you have to produce a final report. Now, many of us are involved in this committee on such types of failures. I can tell you it is not possible to do so, because if you do a willy-nilly job, there will be no lessons learned from such failures. The whole idea is when a failure happens, it is not the failure per se. It is what lessons you learn from it and to try and prevent it from happening again. So the reporting system, the confidential reporting system, The public domain availability of the reports that are made are very, very crucial. These are, I think, some of the issues I want to point to. The others we will take up in the question answers, as I'm sure a number of issues will come up in the question answer session. So I would hand over to you, sir. Let us engage in a good debate.
Thank you, Dr. Subbarao. It was a pleasure. And I can't stop remembering your late father. When we spoke about the condition of construction industry way back in mid-90s, when I had the chance to meet him up, and I asked him this question very blankly, that what are you doing about your engineers in Gammon, India, and how exactly the things really fared for Gammon while you were running it. And he had two very good, valuable advisors for me. He said, always remember, the key to successful execution of any projects. And let's not forget that Gammon was known for the tall structures that they used to construct those days. All the chimneys and all the natural draft cooling towers were constructed by none other than Gammon. They said that the key lies with a gentleman called foreman. And our foremen are the best anywhere in the world for that matter. And the second thing he said, that when he started his innings, that time the graduate engineers will not go and serve the contractors. They would rather go to the government and work there. So he said that we had to create our own cadre, which was known as GTE, Gammon Trained Engineers. I think Harsha might be remembering that. And these were the two advisors that the old man gave me.
Very much so, sir.
Believe you me, this is so valuable and it is so relevant even in today's context, and it is always going to remain so. We don't need Gammon trained engineers anymore. That is where the problem lies. Because if you have a strong foreman and if you have a strong engineer, I think half of your problems are over anyway. Now let me also tell you something that gave me an idea, and this is what again was advised by him. And he said that whether anybody does it or not, but please make sure that the workers who are coming in, they need to be trained. So we devised a method, and as all of you are aware, that today CIDC happens to be one of the biggest human resource development agency as far as the construction workers are concerned. It has got a big boost from organizations such as Central Public Works Department, and my friend Dr. Bansal would be definitely, he needs to be complimented, and his entire department needs to be complimented, because they were the ones who made it mandatory to have the workers holding a skill certificate. And that has prompted the workers and the construction companies also perforce, which otherwise they were not very keen to get their workmen trained. So I think there are certain provisions that we'll have to start building up in the contract documents that you have or you are designing, and make sure that all these things come up there, and we will definitely have a lot of deliberation. Now, another problem that I had been observing and watching, and which comes from my side, we had been visiting number of construction sites. And as you know, CIDC has a very fair number of construction companies as our members. We had been meeting them up off and on and visiting them for evaluating them for Vishwakarma Award. We had been evaluating them for vendor enlistment and things like that. Now, let me share this sad story with you, that almost 99% of these companies have no provision on their sites to make sure that their people, when I say people, I'm talking of engineers, foremen, supervisors, workers, for any kind of self-education even. Forget about the formal training. The sites do not have the construction journals going to them. That is a very, very sad part. None of the people have any respect for documented facts and figures. They don't share the kind of experiences that they have. Now that is causing a great problem. I still remember in the old times when we used to have only 3 engineering colleges in the country, and we had College of Engineering at Gindi, we had Thompson College of Civil Engineering, and we had basically what you call as Bengal Engineering College. These are the 3 oldest colleges that you have there. The tradition always was that the alumni will come back every year and whatever they did, that was documented, reported, and taught to the young students who were graduating from there. Entire irrigation engineering, as all of you must be aware, it came out of such kind of documentation. I know that this kind of documentation did exist because it was part of my own family heirloom also. So these are the good traditions that we don't have. Please insist on people to at least have copy of the kind of journals that they must have, and that is where I'll ask Prabir to get in touch with everyone. And in my recommendation, the journals must go to all the sites. At least the engineers must have time to study that, and that is something that they need to do. Let me come on the government intervention. And believe you me, the government cannot enact any bills, whether it is for engineers or anybody else. This is a long dreamt myth. So what we have to do as professionals ourselves, and none other than us are going to be solving this problem. So kindly look into these things. As a sequel, we'll come back, we'll try to give some kind of a solutions. Let everyone give their own views. And now I think with all the panelists over, I am leaving this floor open for all the questions. I can see many hands that are raised there, and the speakers, the queries, one after another can come, introduce themselves, and raise the questions to the individual panelists or to whoever they like. So let me start this question answer session. Can we have the first question, please?
Sir, if I can be permitted.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Incidentally, one more thing that I would like to add, that the second deliberation that we intend having is actually on the arbitration and dispute resolution, which Harsha spoke about. And I think that's another very major bane that we have. And Professor Gupta will be looking into that. So Professor Gupta, you are welcome. Limit your questions and point out to whom you are addressing this. Professor Gupta, please. Professor Gupta.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, first of all, sir, I'm proud that I heard today Dr. Subbarao, because his father and his mother was very close to me, and whenever they were coming and they were calling me for all the advices and other things. So it is proud for me, number one. Number two, I may say, as the dispute are there, the causes of the dispute is all due to the engineers and the contractors, because neither the engineers are trained nor the contractors are trained. Engineers, even they don't know how to start with the claims. What is the claim? Even they are not aware of that. Whatever they do, they appoint the arbitrator from this level, and even the appointing authorities not aware whether what are the rules and regulations, whether the arbitration clause is there or not. So I will request that first of all the big industry of the construction, whether it is a bridges, buildings, they may train their engineers, they may train their contractor in arbitration law. In arbitration, we are empanelment of the arbitrator or the mediator. I may add now that the act which has come up now of 2019, it is complicated. So it is very important that each and every engineer, they must know it. Otherwise, it is very difficult, because few clauses are there which leads to fraud and other. 2021 Act which has come up regarding the fraud. Fraud Act, it was discussed in 2015 also. And that is clause is superfluous and there were no deal. But how to know it is better if the series of training are started with them, and the CIDC will draw the design of that and will start it. As regard the failure of the construction of the bridges is concerned, only engineers and both the contractor are available. Because we have seen they have no preliminary data. They put the design and they are not aware
of the contract document, and even side investigation are not kept. As an arbitrator, I have done 2-3 cases and I have seen the side data was different and the investigations when done was it was different.
Professor Gupta, we will take up these issues because they are not directly related to today's discussion. I think the invitation has been given, and in the second round of deliberation, which we will be organizing very soon, we will have all these things which we will be discussing. Now, can I request Engineer Vijay Gupta? I can see his hand raised there, and Engineer Gupta can possibly ask questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. First of all, before asking my question, I thought I'll just reply to what you were looking for from Dr. Harshavardhan Subbarao. Your question was how Dr. T.N. Subbarao would have handled this issue. And I've had a lot of interaction with this fine gentleman long back. And the way he would have handled, he was an excellent combination of a designer and a constructor.
Very good.
So person, when he designs, he knows how it will be constructed. He knows intricacies, he knows the nitty-gritties. And when he designs something, it would be delivered to the site, which is absolutely constructible.
Right.
Today's problem with the masses is that, not masses, I would say the constructors or the staff there or the foremen there, they don't want to ask questions. Yeah. What they think is right, they go on constructing, whether they understand the drawing or they don't. So the drawing has to be very clear. What we do in our organization, that is Tandon Consultants Private Limited, we tell our engineer and the CAD person that look, after it is designed and drafted, now you're on the other side of the table. You are a contractor. You have to construct it. Just think, and whatever your questions will be, put them here on the drawing. That should be clear enough to understand. And as a result, we have also been trying to ensure in certain projects that mock-ups are prepared for special activities. In a very simple project where Dr. Harshavardhan and T.N. Subbarao were there and we were there in this project of Mukarba Chowk in Delhi, a mock-up was prepared for a round pier having recesses all around. And when they prepared a mock-up 1:1 scale and full height of 5 or 6 meters, the mock-up failed. They had to demolish the mock-up. Now imagine if this happened at the actual site and one demolished the pier, the whole media will be after us. Would be after us. So all these things definitely, so dovetailing is one issue that I would say. But how the question still remains how to, that's a question I would ask everybody, anybody, how to make sure that all these quality in construction, like one has seen a lot of these precast segmental giving way because the concrete did not reach below the cables. Cables have large ducts and the concrete would not reach in some segments and they are enough to create catastrophe. How to make sure that this is strengthened properly, this construction technique, not only technique, but also ensuring that it is followed is ensured. So that is my question to anybody of any of the panelists, if they can tell me a practical way out, not of course, we can talk a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think I'll request you to kind of, and to everyone else also, while you are asking your questions, kindly send an email to Prabir so that, all the questions can be compiled also. And so that we do not merely rely on our memories, which might fail at times. All of us are above 60, and of course, the health at times plays truant. So we have to basically, not leave it at that. I am one person who always follows it to the logical. Now, the second person I'm inviting is Mr. R.K. Jayagopal. I can see his hand raised there. And Mr. Jayagopal, can you come in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. This is Jayagopal from Bangalore. I see this, regularly see the bridges in distress because we investigate a lot of bridges pre or post failures. Then I was also a witness to Mandvi Bridge failure in 1980s. I was working in the Public Works Department earlier in Goa PWD. But I know the failure, how it occurred. Prior to that, I had inspected, post also. The main thing is, as Bhaumik ji has told, learning from failures is absent now, which is absolutely required for the documentation and future correction for in the course of construction of the bridges. And thing is, when the quantity of construction increases compared to your days, quantity of construction increases, the failure rate also is expected to increase due to many reasons. As I have seen, the foundations, the failure rate of the foundations where we normally check for their integrity or the load carrying capacity, what I have seen from my laboratory, it is about 2%. Coming to the quality control, even now the QCs are hidden by the contractors. Contractors hide the quality control reports. They do not pass it on to the owners, and they close it themselves or with the adjustment with the owners. And design failures are many. Design failures are many. As Mr. Vinay Gupta said, many of our engineers straight away came from college to the AC officers of AC design officers. They have not seen the dust and sun in the site. If they have gone through both these construction problems, many of the design drawings will be on a perfect scale. Then we have seen many shortcuts in the construction methods. Additionally, health auditing of bridges is very poor in the country. Nowadays, it is slowly picking up. The important thing I would like to tell here is proof checkings, which are invariably done by the academics like IISc, IITs, is not acceptable to up to the mark. And I can show Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, that proof checked a bowstring arch bridge to the railways, which collapsed. Now we should allow these IIT students, IIT PhDs, IIT MTechs or IISc MTechs, so that they will take charge of our proof checking, not the academics. There are teachers, their main business is to teach. That's all, sir.
May I respond to Mr. Vinay Gupta's query, Dr. Sarup?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you. So Vinay raised a very pertinent question, and my take on this pertinent question is that you see, construction is a multi-legged race. It's not a triple-legged; it's a multi-legged race where the client, the contractor, the authorities engineer, the detailed design consultant, and the proof consultant each has got a role to play. Now, the pace at which the country is moving forward in terms of infrastructure, we need to seriously ask a question to ourselves: is our stress industry geared, or is all the stakeholders geared to take this kind of jobs? I can tell you I can tell you just two case study. One, last year, there was a failure in a river bridge, a segmental construction. When I visited the site, I found that there are about 300 segments which have already been cast, and the very first span, when they erected, it collapsed during the pre-stressing. And I found that the quality of all the 300 segments are in a very bad shape. And we gave some recommendations, which was not agreed to. And both, because you see, when there is a construction, so many segments have already been cast. There is a responsibility apportioned to both the client, the authority engineer, as well as the contractor. So everybody is a party to that kind of work, in which case it becomes very difficult unless the engineer, authorities engineer, or the client is very bold. The decisions are not going to come so easily. Eventually, when the second and the third segment erection of the superstructure collapsed, they had no option but to reject all the 300 segments. What does this indicate? It indicates that this is a systemic problem. And I can tell you, maybe there are 10 or 12 bridges which has collapsed, which has come to limelight. There are 90 bridges which have not collapsed, but they are near misses. They, they have not failed. It's a thin line between a failure and the safety. Those bridges which are in standing does not mean that they are durable, they are safe in, and they are going to lead a design life of, what we have envisaged. The issue, the point which I'm trying to make is this is a very, very serious problem that we have. Our infrastructure is, our contractors are not geared to take the pace with which we are doing the construction. And if we have to maintain this pace, there has to be a monumentous work in capacity building. That should be the key. Second, to respond to Dr. Jagopal, I would fully agree with his statement about the proof checking of the academic institutions. I think both the contractors and the client, they take they get a shield behind the academic institutions for proof checking. That is to their interest, because the proof checking is done very fast. And if there is a problem, then they think that IIT will come to their rescue, or the other academic institutions will come to their rescue. What these academic institutions are doing, they are doing a disservice to the students, because they are diverting their attention from students to this proof checking, and they are not doing justice to even the profession either, because the proof checking is not really done the way a designed, experienced consultant will do. Thank you.
Can I respond, Swarup Sab, also to add to the debate?
You can, but I think we can hold some of the questions that we have,
right,
and we will go on. Kindly reserve your things, right, and we'll come back to that. Okay. Now I will request Mr. H.O. Ghai to basically raise his question, and after that we'll have Dr. Subbarao.
Jain sir, this is Inderjit Ghai from Chandigarh. I am in this profession since last 37 years. For 15 years, I have worked in construction industry, and in the last 22 years, I am working as a consultant. I have worked as a design consultant as well as authority engineer also. My reaction to all the three issues flagged by you, Dr. Swarup, is that there is a gap and mismatch between the theory and practice. Whatsoever we have written agreements, documents, or our codes, and the practice is not being the same. And everybody is aware about this thing, that this mismatch is here, but everything is being covered, that in document it is written over there regarding the duties, responsibilities, everything is in the document, but it is not being followed. If this mismatch is reduced or at least eliminated, all the 3 points may get sorted out, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. And I think we can have Dr. Subbarao now. Dr. Subbarao, please come in.
Just the points that are being raised are all very germane. The issues really are about getting it right the first time, sir. We have stopped doing that. That was the old ethic. That ethic has sort of gone by. We need to start getting back to doing it right the first time round. Now, the issue really is about the pressure that is being put on a contract. Take, for example, the Delhi-Dwarka Expressway is to be completed in, say, 2 years in a given time, and it's a 8-lane structure, and it's quite a complex piece of work to keep doing continuously. And within that time period, is it really, are you not pushing the contractor? Are you not, in a way, betting him to cut corners? You're asking him to do things which he might not otherwise have done if he had 3 years to do the same project. The realistic scales are not being addressed. This puts pressure on the designers. It puts pressures on the proof consultants to do their work quickly. And everything is, speeded up. And in speeding up, errors happen. So these are some issues I agree with, and we need to flag these, sir, and address them for change.
Madam, Mr. Viswanathan, you are not keeping your things on muted mode. Please do that.
I think the clients need to be told that unrealistic timeframes to achieve, some great monumental progress in kilometers per day is not the way to go ahead. There must be some room to allow some breathing and some time for some good quality work to happen, sir. Cutting corners is what happens. Normalization of deviance is what happens when you do this. This is what I suggest, sir. These are things that we need to look up. Let's take more points, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I have the gentleman whose nickname is Quality Guru? His palm is raised, but I'm not able to get his name.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please
I
introduce.
am Dr. S.K. Breja, retired as Joint Director from National Council for Cement and Building Materials.
Yes, yes, sir.
I have the view that today we have excellent quality of cement in the country, okay, and we have the testing facilities also. What we lack in is that training. Skills has been pointed out. People have to have the skills. So we need to train the people, even the workers, artisans. Designing quality may be good, but what is happening at the construction site, that is actually lacking. We lack. Poor quality of construction is there. Workmanship is very demanding. We are not able to have a good workmanship. So training is very important. First is training. Second is the integrity of the people. If we can take care of the training, we can take care of the integrity, and we don't speed up, and we have the good systems and keep the records, then our bridges will be safe. We'll be constructing safe bridges.
Good.
So that is my point.
Thank you so much, sir. I proceed further. Mr.
Thank
Sudhir
you.
Kumar. Mr. Sudhir Kumar, please. All right, I'll skip him.
Sudhir Kumar. Sir,
Yes.
I have been working with consultancy organizations since last 20 years. And what I am feeling at site, that practical problems behind the bridge collapses and all that. First, this undue pressure of early completion, sir, to both sides, contractors as well as for consultants also. And that severe time constraint for design review. Because by the time consultants are mobilized at site, 10, 20, 30% works are over, and even if a flaw is discovered, more pressure are there to cover up that flaw, not to have a remedy for that one. So that is, and one more thing that in recent times, some undue relaxations in material quality parameters. And this third-party test has become just a formality, sir, because the paymasters are mainly the contracting organizations, and if they are paying to third-party labs, and these third-party results are being managed not every time, but most of the time, sir. And this squeezing of contractual provision to consultants in terms of resources or in terms of logistics, facilities, and all that. So the resources required to monitor the entire process is being shortened day by day. So these are the major issues I am feeling behind these type of collapses or distresses and all that. So these issues may be...
Please list them out and send an email to us.
Okay.
We will try to compile the whole thing and then make a kind of a strategy and come back to you thereafter.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Just one more thing, sir. I provide training on quality aspects, total quality management, ISO 17025, etc. And presently, I work in a university. I'm teaching. I am in a teaching profession now at North Cap University, Gurgaon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that information. Okay,
Thank
we
you.
go back to Mr. S.K. Gupta, please. Mr. S.K. Gupta.
Good afternoon, sirs.
Good afternoon.
First of all, it had been a great opportunity to listen to Subbarao sir. I have been a great admirer of him, and it's always pleasant to hear him on different IIB forums and other seminars. I'm basically from railway. I worked 15 years in constructions basically, 3 years in bridge maintenance particularly, And then for last 5-6 years, I have been working in designs. So, and in our design community, we have been discussing these failures with our friends and colleagues very often, all these failures. So I have a few, see, all the speakers are great people having much more experience than what I have. But 2-3 things which I wanted to point out. First is the caliber of, the mushrooming of design consultants. I mean, we have the codes, we have the softwares, but see, unless you have a feel of a bridge, feel of the structure which you are going to design. I mean, we see the consultants, the young MTech people who just pass out from the college, and they join some consultancy firm at a salary of 30,000, 40,000 rupees. And he is pressurized to produce 3 designs, 4 designs per week or per month, who doesn't have even the feel of the bridge. I find many people coming to me, I mean, they just simply read the codes and they try to apply it. But unless you have the feel of the structure, I mean, you are going to use elastomeric bearing or a spherical bearing, but unless you know how your foundation and pier and abutment is going to transfer the loads, just by mere reading the codes, that cannot give you that kind of feel. So that's something, I mean, there has to be some statutory body which looks into this part, that the people who are being assigned the design jobs, whether they are having that much caliber, that much expertise or not. That's first thing. Second part is documentation part. I mean, whatever code we refer to, but I will refer to one particular bridge, Koilwar Bridge, in just near Patna. It's a double-story bridge, rail-cum-road bridge. And if look at its foundation, the bridge was designed sometime in 1825, construction completed in 1875. And that defies your imagination. I mean, no code can permit that shallow foundation on a river with that kind of a scour capability, the Stone River, and that kind of foundation design adopted by any code. And the bridge has been standing so far without any failure, without any sign of distress. So documentation is the other part. I mean, in the railway, we have something called unique rating number. Each and every bridge, each and every component of every bridge is inspected every year, documented every year. So it gives you the history. I mean, the earlier loading was RBG, then MBG, BGML loading, 25-ton load, 32-ton load, and the same bridge have been seeing that kind of loads from on the fatigue point of view, from small trains to larger trains to Cessna to Anaconda trains, and you see your structure standing. So if you have to take a design, you have seen similar structures standing, different kind of loading cycles, different kind of fatigue definitions, and they're still standing there. So it gives you a great confidence to proceed with a particular design. So I think in the road sector, that kind of documentation of the bridges is lacking. Somehow it was a few years back, this was started by Chief Minister of Bihar, Mr. Nitish Kumar, for the bridges in Bihar. And that has been a very good step. Now the bridges in the Bihar are inspected. All the road bridges are also inspected every year by agencies, and the documentation is done. So first thing is that, I mean, that there has to be a regulatory body which looks into the caliber of people who are doing the design, how they are appointed, what should be the criteria for their appointment. And second thing, the documentation part. That's the 2 things which I wanted to point out. Thank you.
Very good. I think these are very valuable suggestions. And let me share something with you that in CIDC, we have already instituted a system almost like about 5-6 years ago. That is where basically we are analyzing the capability of various service providers. And I would suggest that some of those good consultants who have definitely the kind of wherewithal so that they can qualify, they should basically participate in there. And then rest of it is that we'll have to take up with various project authorities, because many of them have already started following that particular database also. So like very recently, even Central Public Works Department, as well as IRCON, ONGC, they have started looking at that particular thing. So I think the solution lies there somewhere. Let me go next to Mr. Arul.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. I think Professor Tandon wants to say something.
All
Professor
right.
Tandon?
All right. Professor Tandon, please come in.
Yeah.
Only if there is time. There are enough questions. I think let Dr. Swaroop decide.
Professor Tandon, there is all the time in the world for Professor Tandon. Okay?
Okay, sir.
We will all be benefited. And as one of the elder members of our fraternity, and you know, I have always kept you in greatest esteem possible. And please go ahead. You have all the time. And it is our privilege to have you here today.
Thank you so much for saying so, Dr. Swaroop. Firstly, I wish to thank CIDC for taking this initiative. It is most timely, and for various reasons which you yourself have said, I think that this is a very important issue which we have to take up at this stage and discuss as to how to get out of this quagmire that we seem to have got into. Of course, there are a number of things which are wrong with the system, right from the selection of consultants, contractors, proof consultants. I mean, the system itself requires to be overhauled. And the other issue is that just by overhauling the system, we are not going to get the result by itself. There is the question of the quality of the people who are there in our profession. Bridge engineering is a specialized subject. It is not like how to design a reinforced concrete structure or something like that, which students go through. Bridge engineering is a little more specialized, and it requires some amount of extra qualification before you are sent to a bridge site. If you don't know what a bridge is, or like somebody was saying, you don't know what a bearing is, there is no use. I can tell you one more thing. During the course of an interview, one of the engineers, I asked him many things about concrete, about water cement ratio and so on and so forth, but he seemed to not be able to answer anything. So I finally asked him this leading question: have you ever seen concrete? And you know what the reply was? Yes, sir, I have seen it on the YouTube. Now, from that, I think I can only say that what is the use of AICTE saying that you have to do 6 months of training before you can go to, get a degree? They must specify that this 6 months has to be spent on the site, not in an air-conditioned office, in a consultant's or a designer's office or something like that. You have to be at the site unless you get a feel of what this whole thing is about. And many people have talked about it's a question of construction management, it's a question of materials, it's a question of a whole lot of things which make up even a thing like concrete. And you will not be able to learn it by sitting in a designer's office, in an air-conditioned office, punching some keys to run the software. So this is one of the suggestions that I have in the question of implementation. The third thing is about proof consultant. Proof consultant should never be appointed by the contractor. There is a conflict of interest there. You are appointing somebody to check your designs, whom you are paying. How can this be? I mean, it is common sense. I don't think there is anywhere in the world that you have a proof checker who's appointed by the contractor whose design you are checking. This can happen. This needs to be completely overhauled as far as this proof consultancy is concerned. And many of the things could have been spotted if the proof consultant was appointed by, let us say, the owner at a proper fee, rather than the contractors haggling over, how many drawings you are going to sign per month and all that, because that is the type of thing that one has come across. I think upgrading of skills, everybody has talked about, but how to go about it, because it's a very, very large problem. I am not sure what the solution lies in, but this is one of the most important part of the implementation.
And unless we have people who can be trained for the site work, for the design work, etc., separately, it may be separate streams, but they must know, one must know everything about what the other person is doing. One of the things that came to my mind was the long pending engineers bill, with which Dr. Swaroop ruled out more or less in the beginning when he said that the government is not going to do anything for us. We have to do it. We have to do ourselves for ourselves. I think that is a very important issue, judging by the history of the engineers bill and where it is today. After, despite so much of efforts, I think that I don't know whether this is going to go very far, although it does look at times that the situation is changing and it looks the end of the tunnel, but finally we find that there is another tunnel after this this tunnel ends. So it's I'm not sure whether this engineers bill is going to be realized at least in my lifetime. I hope that it is at least the future engineers have the benefit of it, because engineers bill is some kind of a certification that and a recognized certification that you have certain kind of specialization. I mean, even if you look at the US, for example, every state has got a certification, and you have to say what your specialization is. Here, the way NHAI is operating, that you have to have how many DPRs you have made of the order of 5 kilometers. That is no way to judge. It depends on what is the type of project you are handling. Does it have bridges? Does it have highways? Does it have pavements? What is the or is it traffic? Traffic part of it, which is the most important. All this comes into the picture, and we have got no specialization. And while selection also, it is just the same thing. It has to be overall. And I think we have to start with, I think the selection of consultants, contractors, proof consultants has to be overall. I think that is the starting point. And upgradation of the skills of people. There are many organizations like the Indian Academy of Highway Engineers, for example, and there are also organizations like CIDC, who's doing such a wonderful job about training of workmen. We may never get the foreman that Harsha talked about, or Dr. Subbarao, Dr. Swaroop talked about, because all those foremen who were in Gammons, they shifted to the Middle East 25 or 30 years ago. They are no longer there in India, and there is, in the old days, there used to be a bricklayer, and there used to be a chap, the assistant an assistant used to just hand over the bricks to him, but in the process he used to learn how bricklaying is done. That was the tradition, and it went on and on. But now that is not the case. Nobody wants to be a bricklayer's assistant to start with. They want to do bricklaying themselves, whether they know it or not. So it's a very difficult kind of a situation. So let us not go back what it used to be, because those days are never going to come back. People are never going to learn. For example, in the design field in which I am operating, it is very difficult to ask a designer that you please don't use a computer for 3 months. Just do everything by hand, so that you know what you are doing. We started it many years ago, but then we had to give up because this is a very expensive process. And at the end of it, people didn't learn very much. So I don't know where we are, but thank you so much, Mr. Swaroop, Dr. Swaroop, for initiating this discussion at least. I think that you are, by all means, please have another one for arbitration like you plan to do. But we should come back to this issue about how we are going to improve the overall scenario in the country, where we have the upgradation of skills, and we put the government at least on the right track in certain areas, like selection particularly. Thank you.
Very true.
Thank you, sir. You have always been full of wisdom, and I have always respected whatever you have said. And your word is my command. And all I can assure all of you is that once CIDC puts their hand onto something, we definitely do achieve it. As a matter of fact, why I told that the government will not do anything for getting this engineer's bill is something which emanates out of the fact that as the member secretary of Engineering Council of India, we had requested Mr. Suresh Prabhu to be with us. This was almost like about 4 years ago that we were celebrating our annual day, and of course the day that we decorate some of the finest engineers. And we were just talking about it, and everybody suggested that Mr. Prabhu should take it upon himself to make sure that an engineer bill comes out. This was 4 or 5 years ago. So Mr. Prabhu came out with a very, very simple kind of a solution. And he said that, I believe you in CIDC, and actually it was me who had made that request to him on behalf of the participants. So he said, I believe that you in CIDC are basically doing a wonderful work certifying the skill of workmen. Whose certificate is that you are giving it to them? And are they being engaged by the industry or not? I said more than 200%. Even before I am able to finish the training, they are all lapped up by the industry. As a matter of fact, many of our trained workmen, they had also risen to become entrepreneurs in their own right. And supervisors have become true foremen. Many of them have also acquired now degree of engineering or diploma of engineering. That's a thing that we are doing. So he said, in case if you are doing that, then what prevents you within ECI to initiate this process of basically examining whether the engineers are fit or not? And then he said something where the penny dropped. And he said very clearly, he said, tomorrow, suppose if there is a bill and there is an act, who are the people who are going to be deciding that which engineer is good or bad? Most of the people who will be deciding this, and certainly not the bureaucrats. You would not like the bureaucrats to decide this. They are all sitting in this very room. So what prevents you to initiate this whole thing? Believe you me, sir, that was the day I decided that ECI will start the registration of professional engineers. I am requesting all of you to kind of look at our own strength and power. We are not going to be relying on somebody else. As professionals, once we say that this is going to be done, it will be done. When we say that it will not be done, it will not be done. And believe you me, when somebody raised this particular issue of government giving the undue pressure and things like that, by government I mean the bureaucrats. And bureaucrats would have to listen to you as professionals. They have absolutely no choice to kind of overrule you. Somebody cannot come and tell you that produce this kid within 4 months' time. Employ 2.5 people and produce this one in 4 months' time. This cannot be done. So the time limits, the quality of the works, the failure, because ultimately it is our professional reputation which is at stake. And that is what basically became the last straw where I decided I will raise this particular issue. Unfortunately, the incidents that provoked me was that one of our finest companies, the work that they were doing, they also suffered the same fate. Why did they do that? How exactly and where did they that is what I was mulling over. And then I was touring around the country watching many of the construction sites. And for shock of everybody, let me tell you, at their sites, the engineers have come from all kind of small contractors. They have absolutely no background. They do not know the hallmark of what basically the great company has and several other things. So I do not wish to dwell onto that, and I do not wish to name. But this was the last straw where I decided that let me have this deliberation. And I am so obliged to all of you that you all have joined. So we will work out certain methods, certain schemes, put it to you, and let us not forget something, that if we can't do it for ourselves, nobody else is going to do it for us. That you please take it from me. We cannot keep on waiting for some lousy bureaucrat sitting in the government deciding what is going to be the shape of the engineer's bill. We are going to be telling them whether this engineer is worth something or not. That is something that we have to do. Take it upon ourselves and we will do a fine job, I'm very sure. You have plethora of information available. There are wonderful record-keeping methods in Indian Railways. Why is it that Public Works Department of various states cannot follow the same? The example of this bridge in Bihar, although Bihar, which is my native state, is considered to be one of the most backward states, but I think this is an example which needs to be cited everywhere. If Honorable Chief Minister had embarked on this, I think it's a wonderful example that we need to cite. And let us try to pick up those good things from wherever possible and try to give it to everybody. And that is what we need to do, sir. So with that, I think I'll ask Mr. Arul Jayachand to come, and he's last on my list. After that, there are no more questions. So then we will think of closing the session. Mr. Arul Jayachand.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. First of all, I pay my respects to the big doyens of Indian bridge construction industry, people of Himalayan achievements. First of all, my respects to that. Sir, I feel an average engineer thinks that failure of a bridge means a spectacular failure of the span and with cameras catching everything. But then nobody bothers about the failure in durability. There are thousands of failures in durability. The bridges don't live their expected life. So many of it I've seen. And secondly, about dynamic performance. And many people just live with that. That I've seen the failure goes beyond the spectacular thing in that. And I happened to be a part of many failure investigation of the bridges. And one of that I would say is the Lakshmi Nagar launching girder bridge failure in the DMRC. I was, of course, on the wrong side of the investigation. I was from the contractor side. But then when I started the investigation, I found the lack of integrity in the engineers, because they were giving me information which is completely opposite to that of the real that is because the penalty of the engineers going to pay is very high, because any accident is stopped. It's not over until some heads rolled. So what I found was we do not have a system in which engineers have failed and they'll be able to express and give the knowledge to correct. So what I normally do is I go ask the people on the site and all these workers. They are very innocent people. They'll tell you what really has happened. In fact, we solved the problem from the contractor side what has happened in Lakshmi Nagar purely by the workers from Bihar. Sir, this is my experience. Secondly, then we have built a bridge monitoring system in Pamban. Now we have 48 sensors, and we get, once a train passes, we get the information in our mobile phones, and the entire data comes to our computer. So every safety is there. If a small overshoot is there, we immediately get it in IIT Madras. So it is it's a fantastic, but the system is, who is going to pay that? Or the culture, everybody says beautiful health monitoring system we have demonstrated. So that is the point I want to say to IIT Baiters. Sir, there are a lot of people on the stakeholders in the chain. Correct. So we have some values and we bring to that. And there's absolutely, it is a give and take and, between all of us in a joint way, so that the final beneficiary is the bridge engineering industry. So that I can always promise from IIT side. So I feel, sir, there's lack of integrity or the lack of passion for the quality is all across the board I have seen in this profession. So probably in every aspect of this have to be addressed, sir. Thank you for this opportunity, sir. It is wonderful. I sat through the 2 hours. A long time had such a nice discussion. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jayachandra. I think it was a very, very kind of thing for you to say, and we are all obliged for all of us being there. I believe Mr. G.S. Dubey wants to say something. Mr. Dubey, can you come in, please?
Sir, I am a student of bridge engineering till date. With the permission of my leader, Dr. P.R. Sharif, my mentor, Professor Engineer O.P. Gupta, and Balokji Bhomik, Dr. Harsh Bara. I have come across my life. This is third time that I am coming with Subbarao. When I was in SAIL Bokaro Steel Plant, I had my boss, K.V. Subbarao, my mentor and teacher in engineering, S.V.A. Subbarao, and professor and engineering head, IIT Kharagpur, Professor Rao of 73. I was involved in the construction of Telmachu Bridge when I was posted in SAIL Bokaro Steel Plant in Bihar. I have faced some ground reality problems that I would request Alokji Bhomik and Dr. Harsh Subbarao and my leader P.R. Saru for documentation in the contract document, the things. I have asked this question in chat box. What is fast? Who is fast? Egg or chicken? Any design engineer must be first at least 5 years, should be posted in site. He will not know what is the minimum distance required, lap length required, development required, and how many reinforcement bars is required in columns. That is called some cover. Second is documentation of this thing in the contract document about the monitoring day-to-day weather to whatnot. And third is first and priority should be given to the soil investigation of the piers, foundations, pile or well or anything. So depending upon the nature and characteristics of soil of Mother Earth, as learned from Bharat Singh and Teljagir and Macadam, this Mother Earth cannot be ever predicted with Google map and some theoretical soil of that area. And most of the time, this time is lost due to the investigation and type of design encountered during soil investigation report. That is my humble submission. As we have met 3 Subbaraos, 4 Subbaraos today, so I am ending my questions within 4 with the support of my leader and my mentor. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Dubey, thank you so much. And I think, Harsha, you have a great responsibility. Mr. Dubey is a great persuasive person, and I think he'll make you work. So just
and one more thing, sir, I want to mention. So far as the superstructure is concerned, it is always preferable steel bridge, not concrete. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think it had been a very, very interesting discussion. Now let me come to the kind of things which we should be taking as the next step. And the next obvious step is, and I always follow the advice of my elder, Mr. Tandon. He has suggested that we should basically have a sequel of this, or rather sequence of these kind of deliberations. Now, I personally feel that between today and next time that we meet, and very soon we'll work out a schedule. Prabir will have to look into the kind of schedule that we have. Until then, we will have comments coming from everybody. We'll compile that. And in the next meeting, where I would request all of you to join like you have done, as a matter of fact, request more people to come and join, because that is where we'll be discussing about the draft strategy document as to what exactly we are going to be doing. Needless to say, CIDC Secretariat will be working on that. And I'm absolutely certain that I will have integral support coming from everyone, including my panelists and other very, very senior professionals who are here part of this particular meeting. So with that, I think I take your permission and declare this meeting as closed, unless otherwise somebody else wants to say something. And if not, then I am handing it back to Prabir. Prabir, you can say the graces and close the meeting, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I think it's time to conclude today's session. a lovely and warm evening to our most valued panelists and participants. On behalf of CIDC and CE&CR, I would like to thank Dr. Saru, Director General CIDC, for taking the initiative to host the event and for devoting valuable time from his busy schedule. I want to thank all the panelists and participants for their valuable suggestions and sharing graceful opinion. I'd like to thank everyone who came out to the panel discussions. We have been fortunate to have all of you from academic, industry, and other fields, and confident that we will continue to receive substantial support from you all in the future too. Thank you all.
Swarup, can I have one suggestion? इनके सिन्हा,
अरे बड़े भाई कहाँ छिपे हुए थे आप?
हम तो थे यार, हम एक कह रहे थे कि in olden times, if you remember, we had bridge construction specialists. I mean, the constructor were specialists in bridge construction, say Gammons, SCC, like that, you know, and they had a team of. There was a reference made by Tandon that those people have left and gone, the tradesmen. Now, if that happens. See, now what we are doing is we are giving to one contractor who is a road contractor, basically.
Yes.
And most of the work is road.
Yes, that's the
And then if you make it sure, I have been telling in my ministry also, that make it sure that all bridges above 60 meter or above 40, 30 meter, whatever you could span, it must be done by somebody who is a registered bridge contractor. Because then they will have the persons who are basically qualified to do bridge works. And once they are continuing on doing only bridge works, they adapt the capability and the finish, you know. That is what was mentioned. I really thank you for taking up this case, but I think this point should have been taken up and somebody must look into this one. I mean, say for example, there is one that cable state bridge that Chandigarh ka kya naam hai uska, that some bridge contractors are coming up. So those
SP Singla
and something like that. I have seen his work. He did the steel bridge for me in Punjab. One steel bridge was steel arch bridge. So like this, you know, if they have the capability, there are still some few bridge contractors left. And once we have this sector as identified, I mean, I was in the ministry till chief engineer, I was chief engineer bridges. And only bridge contractors used to come to us. And there were, say, UP Bridge Construction Corporation and things like that. They will all come. They have the capabilities. So it is better to build that so that you have the assets on bridge construction. And people mentioned about modeling also, you know. Vinay Gupta mentioned that some model should be constructed. Yeah, that for things like that, you know, if you have say a kind of long bridge construction, then there should be, the methodology should be based on actual implementation of his equipment, his personnel, how will they work? That should be the methodology, not a written methodology, oh, I will do this, I will do this. No. That should be kept shown at site. And that is the method which is done elsewhere. Outside, I have also seen the workmanship. And they do it, everything has to be done. Say if you make some seconds or minutes, this one key, so many strips of concrete will come in 10 minutes. That has to be actually established at site first in a mock drill, and then it is mentioned. So all these things will have to be looked into. But important thing is the bridge construction specialist. That is even in design. I said, Mr. Tandon, I used to know him as bridge construction designer. He still has. Same with Alok. But if you go for general one, yes, then there will be issues. There will be issues. And bridge construction is not a common thing which can be left to everybody. Yeah, that's what I want to say. The other things which Mr. Bhaumik has already said, that there should be review of the IRC codes. I do agree there. I have been advocating for that also.
Thank you, Bade Bhai.
Thank you, but you chose a very good subject. I must congratulate you.
As a matter of fact, let me share this with everyone here. And I was simply missing something which ultimately got completed this evening. Matter of fact, on this very issue, the initiation on this particular path was done by none other than Mr. N.K. Sinha. He was the one who had actually led us to be there with the government of Telangana, where we started speaking to them about the health check of the bridges that they have. And this was almost like about 2.5 years ago, sir.
Yeah, almost
2.5 years ago. And it was a great deliberation that we had. And Telangana assured us that they will be looking into it. And that was the beginning where we were talking about the health check and diagnostics for the bridges that are already tottering there. But then, of course, as I told you, the last straw on the back of camel was when this collapse took place very recently. And that forced me to start thinking that what is actually wrong with us. And that is where basically this whole thing came about. Be rest assured, we'll all come back, we'll have our own solutions and we'll implement them. And that is precisely what I'm going to do. I have plenty of wise people with me now, and I think we'll be embarking on this journey.
And at Sarup sir, एक और चीज issue था. Let us break it in two sections. One, the collapse during construction, and one, the rehabilitation part, the aging of the structures.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
that
right.
There should be two different compartments.
No doubt about it. I think this is very, very good suggestion. Let me draft it out. Let me get all the comments from everyone, and we will consult all the panel experts.
I just have a suggestion before you close, sir.
Yes.
There are two actually. One is what has been also echoed by people in the audience.
Yeah.
That we should encourage a bridge engineering course with a 6-month stint at site for a graduate degree, a MTech degree, and we should also encourage at BTech level, maybe a 6-month bridge engineering specialization at BTech level. That should be one. It is completely neglected in the educational curriculum as such. That is one need. In fact, we could establish a university. Tongji University in China is a huge university for bridge engineering. It has a very principal bridge engineering section of nearly 350 students at any time. And the president of IABSC is the head of the department of that university as such. So we may be with the capacity in the educational side, we have to put a proposal to the educational ministry that we need a university focus on bridge engineering. That's the need of the hour. Design, construction, everything to be addressed, different phases in that course. Right. The other point that comes about is I forgot, sir. I just wanted to say something. I forgot. It was something along the lines of. No, I missed it, sir. Let's go ahead. I missed the point. I'll send it in writing.
Well, Harsha, I think that's a plethora of suggestions that you have given, and kindly articulate them and send it. We'll just put it in the blueprint. But of course, it's almost like a situation what you call as firefighting. And when firefighting is there, then we have to see the kind of first actions that we need to take, and the second actions, and then of course the third action. Setting up of a university is a kind of a long-term affair, and we have to basically do the firefighting while the fire is going on. And believe you me, this fire is going on. There are no doubts about it.
Exactly.
Because my own prediction is very clear, very, very clear, and that is in next about 7 to 8 years time, in 10 years time. Believe it or not, all the bridges and all the flyovers that we had so lovingly constructed, and especially in the metros, they are going to go down and under. Take it from me, that is something which is very ominous kind of prediction that I am making. But the way we have manhandled our structures, I think the nature is going to pay back to us. So I think this is the wake-up call. Let us get up and start doing certain things and get on to this firefighting exercise. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, bhai. Thank you. Thank you so much.
today. It was a very, very usefully spent
Thank
day.
you very much.
Every moment of it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.